started. So that's gone down significantly. When you talk about 11 to 7%, there's been a pretty significant change in the amount of print that we've been doing, and that's just more of an online spend over the last few years. And it's funny because it's not even been that long that online's been considered kind of a traditional media. Now it's good to have just the fact that it's kind of clumped in with all of those other mediums. There's so many more ways to track that now than there were. Obviously, when websites first came out, there was we have a website. We've got people now. How do we start selling ads, and how do we start tracking that? So we've got ours is Atlas tracking, which is again part of basically Manosites works with them to get us all of the clicks that we're getting through to the Bear site from these different ads, so we can kind of evaluate it on a cost per click basis. Then you've also got cost per click campaigns, where you're just paying by the number of clicks that you get into your site. And we haven't done any of those with Bears. We've just kind of done, all right, well, we're going to spend this money up front. We know that the rates that we're getting back are pretty good as far as people jumping to the site from those. So. Anything else? Jumping into social media, Facebook and Twitter, we really just started this like the beginning of last season, so we've only been engaged in this now for essentially 2 full seasons, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work. I really felt the need that we needed to be there, so I was pushing pretty hard that we get into this area. Again, sports, so many teams had Facebook and Twitter pages long before 2 years ago, but 2 years, you're still a little bit ahead of the curve from some of these other businesses. I mean, now you look at it, and every business out there is tagging their radio and TV spots with Facebook and Twitter. But Facebook, and this was a bit of personal preference, and this is what's been fun, is you kind of, since it's so new, there's not a right and wrong way to necessarily do it. I guess the only wrong example I can think of it was, this happened this past week, a person who was on Chrysler's Twitter account, essentially, was like me, where they had their own personal Twitter account, but they also worked on Chrysler Auto's Twitter account. They were toggling between the two, and they meant to put on their own Twitter account, I don't understand why they call Detroit the Motor City when no one can bleeping drive. Well, they didn't put that on their own Twitter account. They put that on Chrysler's Twitter account. So, needless to say, that person, obviously that got retweeted in the Twitter community pretty quickly. Chrysler did everything they could, damage control, and took that off. But unfortunately, that person was let go the next day. I mean, it's an honest mistake, but it's one of those things you can't do. So, while there is no really right and wrong way to do stuff, that I guess is totally wrong. So. But what's been fun about Facebook and Twitter is just kind of understanding, all right, well, what is this community all about? What are they interested in? How much information can you really give them? What is the right line of towing partnership stuff into there? How much of that will they tolerate before they're like, listen, I'm not even interested in your page anymore because now I'm just getting fed all this partnership stuff. So that's been interesting to see how much, and I know for me, I've just kind of gone off personal preference. I follow the Flyers, the Sixers, the Eagles, and I follow Capitals on Twitter as well, and I on Facebook. But when I go to my personal Facebook page, and I have to scroll down and then go to older posts before I find a post from my friend, I get pretty annoyed. I mean, that's my personal space. And although I chose to follow the Flyers, I still don't need, in my opinion, I don't need 17 game updates about what's going on, because I'm on Facebook to really follow my friends, to see what's happening in their lives. So my own personal preference has been to keep the Facebook interaction as minimal as possible while trying to stay engaged with the user. We keep it really simple on Facebook, and we'll even jump into that a little bit. But what we do is we'll give you some photos from the games, we'll give you highlight videos from the game, we'll jump into a pregame story and the end of the game. I know a lot, I honestly got a Facebook update from the Flyers the other game. It was like Pronger and somebody battling in the corner for the puck. Well, dude, I don't care. Like, I like the Flyers and I want to see what's going on, but just give me like scores. At the most, give me what the scores have been.
Can people post on your page?
Absolutely. and you'll see some of that. This is our live page today, talking about Brayden Holtby is one of our goalies. He's up at the Caps right now. He was one of the 3 stars for the week for the NHL. Then you see a couple stories here that just fans have kind of posted. It's been interesting to realize how much you have to manage and oversee what's going on these pages. The one piece I definitely was not ready for is when we got into the playoffs. Our fans would jump onto the opposing team's Facebook page, and the opposing team's fans would jump onto ours, and it would just, it got pretty ugly. And it would get to the point where, if you start using profanity or you start attacking another person on board, eventually you have to do something about it. So we weren't big on removing users, but we definitely tried to intervene and say, obviously this is a forum where there's people of all ages. We encourage your opinions, but we encourage you to repost minus the profanity. And one person gives someone else a personal attack, so we just be damn them.
So you shut it down before it got posted, or
after it was posted? Yeah. And what we would do is I typically would respond to them directly, in the comment section at whatever the person's name is. Your most recent post has been removed due to profane language. We encourage you to repost minus the profanity. So, ultimately, we still want it to be a fun forum where people can, there's nothing wrong with two opposing teams talking a little bit of trash about the game, but when you get into using profanity in a forum like this where you have fans from all ages, and then, if you get into personal attacks, that you just, obviously, you can't even think about tolerating that, so.
Do you manage?
Yes.
All of this?
Yes. Which, again, I was really excited about social media and getting it done, but it's been a lot. And it takes a lot of the day to really oversee that, where, in some industry, the Facebook page, isn't always moving as much, isn't doing as much. Where in sports, there's always something going on. There's player transaction, there's news happening. So that's why it's a lot of monitoring, from this end. The nice piece of that is it always gives you information to post. You're never struggling. For the park at times, I know in the off season, what are we going to post on our Facebook page? It's December, or actually January. Obviously got Christmas campaign, but January and February, there's nothing going on. So it's how do you keep the base that you have engaged in your page at all, or just remembering that you're there. So the nice thing is, again, there's always content, but there's always an avid base. You always kind of get into some struggles. But
how many followers do you have?
I have a little over 13,000. And that's been, again, a little over 2 years, which has been good for us. We're in a league. I think the American Hockey League itself has about 20,000 followers. The Charlotte Checkers, I'd love to catch up to them, but we haven't had an opportunity yet. They're at about 18,000 followers, but they kicked off kind of their Facebook campaign by giving everyone who liked the page a ticket to the game, because they have a huge arena, so they've got a lot of opportunity to kind of do that. Where people could come and select their game. We've got 10,500 seats essentially, and we're averaging 9,661 people. So there's not an opportunity for us just to kind of blanket and give tickets away, because then we're effectively costing ourselves money. But you can see this is kind of one of the ways one of the partners, Ollie's Barton Outlet, they're doing a player appearance, so we felt it was still something worthwhile to post to our Facebook fans. But it's one of those areas where, Ollie's likes it, because now there's probably going to be a ton of people clicking through their website, checking out what this appearance is all about. And, I'm sure in Ollie's hopes that not only will that person check out that there's a player appearance there, but they're going to check out kind of what else is going on their site. So, again, this is one of those areas where partnerships is starting to sell some of these elements. All right, well, if you do a player appearance, you're going to get a Facebook and Twitter post. And so that's kind of, again, been another delicate balance, because how much do you really promote businesses when people just are there to like you? Now this, again, since it's a player appearance, there's a great tie, and it makes a lot of sense. And you can see, again, with the avid base, we posted that Holtby was first star of the week like 3 hours after our fans had found it out and posted it. So they do a pretty excellent job doing that for us. Obviously, we embed video here, and then we'll do photos as well. What's great about being able to manage Facebook pages, and something that you don't get on your own personal Facebook page, is And this, I know the scary part of Facebook for everyone is, you know, we get all these interaction information, so we can kind of tell pretty quickly the active users for this week, where's that shaken out at, you know, what are they responding to, and again, I don't want to scare anyone, but you know, the other big piece of Facebook for us is, you know, all of our fans, we all automatically have all of this information on them. So we know that on our Facebook page, 50% are male, 49% are female. And that's the other big thing that we've seen over the last few years is there's been really a shift, a lot more female fans jumping in. You know, I think when I started, and that was what, 3 years ago, it was about 60-40 as far as our base coming to the game, and that's narrowed down to, I think last year was 52-48. So you see the ticket purchasers, a lot more females are coming out to the games. What this does great for us is obviously we're speaking to you know, a younger audience. I mean, most of our Facebook and followers there, you can see, are under the age of 34, and a lot of them in the 18 to 24 range. So not only do you have the challenge of figuring out, all right, well, what's everyone looking for on a new medium, but I'm definitely on 18 to 24, so I also try to figure out, well, what kind of things are 18 to 24-year-olds into, and what are they doing on their pages. So, yeah, it's got a lot of trying to stay up with industry trends and see what other teams are doing that are working. And it breaks out, obviously, the cities, the languages, the countries. You know, the 22 people in Finland apparently love us. But it's great to get these insights. And actually, when you get over 100,000 fans, these insights get a lot more detailed. So Hershey Park can dig into a lot more personal information than we're able to, just because we have less fans. And the last piece of this is, and this is relatively new, they just started this piece of it, but you can identify, well, these are all the posts that we put up as the administrator. Well, what are the folks responding to? Obviously it's not quite real time, but it's only a couple days behind. And what this allows us to do is identify, all right, well, what really is engaging those Facebook users? What are they getting? What are they looking at? What are they getting engaged in? What are they talking about? What gets them to comment? So that's been nice for us to kind of have that information on not just how many people are looking at it, but how many people are talking about it. And we found a lot of, you know, if you kind of get the player news, that was Braden Holtby had a shutout, his first NHL shutout. And then, you know, there was a lot of fans just saying congrats to Braden and that kind of stuff. But again, just for them to go on the page and take the time to put a comment, you know, it was an effort on their end. So, you know, we like when we're able to kind of reach those folks. And 1%, obviously, doing feedback is, you know, far cry from some of those other stories that we posted. We just started doing some promotions on Facebook this past year. We've had some pretty good results on that. We again err on the side of caution with our Facebook promotions. You'll see a lot of teams and a lot of folks out there that are doing them where it's just that 10th person to respond to this trivia question or whatever it is wins. It is our understanding that it technically is illegal. Facebook isn't supposed to be the medium for you to run your promotion. So what we utilize is we create a unique URL page where people can fill in their information and enter to win just like they would on our website. So that's the way we attack it, is even though we post that on Facebook, they have to go to that unique URL, which pulls them off of Facebook to actually enter the contest. Now, so many people are doing these promotions on Facebook. I don't think Facebook is really going to worry about one or two illegal promotions, but again, part of a larger company with the park and everything else, our legal team just advised us to kind of stay on the side of caution there. We're going to reevaluate and look at to see if we can do some of those other things, but it's our understanding at this point we can't, so we're just going under that understanding. But again, the promotions have been big for us. We had, in a 6-hour time frame, had about 1,800 people sign up to try to win Washington Capitals tickets, which was a big one for us. We had, over a 3-day period, about 700 people sign up to win ice from the Calder Cup championship game last year, which, you know, is just ice in the mason jar, which is going to be water, which you can get it out of it, or whatever. You know, it had decal on it, it said it was authentic ice. And it really was, I can assure you that. But again, it's great to have an avid following. This is one of the areas where